Like a beautiful day in San Francisco for you, Eugen.
Absolutely. It's always sunny here in California.
Keith, you still have a bit of snow in Vancouver there?
Actually, we do, yeah. Not quite that much, but yeah, it's still got snow every morning.
And you can see behind me, little crisp, but beautiful clear day in Silicon Valley.
Beautiful. Okay, let's get started. It's 8 o'clock. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's SAP Fiori-side chat. We're excited that you have joined us again today. My name is Eugen Winschel from the SAP UX Product Management team, and I'm joined by my co-host Keith. Hi, Keith.
Hi, everyone.
And we have our colleagues Peter Spielvogel and Stefan Engelhardt with us. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you.
And today's topic, as asked or requested last week from the audience, is again SAP Fiori Elements and Fiori Tools. Today as the deep dive session, and we will be doing lots of demos and interactive discussions. So welcome, and we invite you actually to ask lots of questions during the presentation. So don't wait until Stefan and Peter are done. Actually ask all the questions throughout, make it as interactive as possible. That's why we call it Fiori-side chat. And before we get started, some ground rules from you, Keith.
Yeah, so if we could advance the slide, unless I'm, there we go, maybe one more slide here. Yeah, so basically we're really focusing here on SAP UX and UX topics, right? We're not trying to sell you anything, just giving you as much information as possible. We are part of a larger ecosystem. We have partners, we have internal resources, and customers on this call. We just ask that refrain from promoting third-party services or tools and virtual introductions. So if at the bottom of the Zoom menu, you'll see an orange chat window. We'd like to have you kind of click that open and introduce yourself because we always like to know who we're speaking to. Also in the lower left, you'll see a video setting, or I'm sorry, you'll see an audio setting, I think for most of you now. You can click that and speak. We'd like to hear your voice, and if you'd like to actually be on video, we can arrange that as well. But most importantly, if you are not speaking, if you just put yourself on mute, that would be great. We are an informal group. We have a lot of fun, but please keep it professional and respectful. And we are recording things and putting it on a wiki that you all will have linked and available to you. And so finally, this presentation does have a few forward-looking statements, and like anything, these aren't commitments to dates or feature sets. And certainly you don't want to put anything we say in a contract, but all of these statements do represent the best information that we have and our opinions. Make sure that you don't depend on things too much. Always check in with us or check in with the appropriate resources and your contacts to make sure that anything that we say is available when you need it. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our presenters again today, Peter and Stefan, and I'll go on mute. And so Stefan, please take it away.
Actually, I'll start it off. Thanks for having us again, Eugen and Keith. We had fun last time, so we're happy to do it again. If you were not with us last week, here's a brief recap. We talked about SAP UI5 as the foundation for Fiori Elements, and during our conversation yesterday, packaging it, Keith said, well, isn't Fiori Elements really just another layer of UI5 controls packaged in a very neat way to accelerate how you put them together? And I think the answer to that is yes. So very insightful comment on that, Keith. We talked a bit about the SAP Fiori Elements page types. If you missed that, we're going to go into those in significantly more detail today, focused on what you can do with each. And we did an intro, a very high-level demo about building apps. So for today, we're going to look at each page type in much more detail in the form of a demo as opposed to a PowerPoint. We'll show you some examples of SAP Fiori Elements apps from SAP S/4HANA. Fiori Elements is a tool that we use internally at SAP to build apps for S/4HANA. For us, it works for about 80% of the scenarios. We can use Fiori Elements. For others, we go Freestyle UI5. Your results may vary depending on your specific business needs, but you could consider that as a ballpark. We're going to talk about annotations today. We mentioned them last time, so you'll know what they are, but here you'll see them in use. And it turns out there are a couple of different types of annotations, some that are on the front end, some that are on the back end, and we'll talk about and demo that. And if we have time, we'll talk about some stuff we're working on in the lab, specifically OData v4 and what's important about that and how it will help you. So with that, we'll lead with page types and their capabilities. So Stefan, you want to start on this, or you want me to cover this?
Yep, I will gonna start. Just share my screen.
Okay. So I see the slides.
So you can see the agenda for today?
Yes.
Good. And now you see the page types?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so so this session will be interesting for you independently if you are a techie or not. So we will start with the capabilities, showing this at the page types, and then where you can look them up, and you will learn how to figure out if something is supported. So by basically using the documentation and our feature map. And also to start with some best practices. So one of the most important aspects is to choose the right tool. So be it Fiori Elements or doing a Freestyle UI5 app, or maybe even doing a native mobile app. And so this session should then be able to help you for the part when you build a web application, whether to choose Fiori Elements or Freestyle UI5. Because you got a deep dive and you know it better now afterwards. Yeah, so one of the key factors of success is that the whole team knows the available tools and their capabilities. Of course, not everyone on a technical level, but most importantly, the capabilities. And then the team can do a joint decision if they think they can go for Fiori Elements or if they want to create a freestyle app.
Stefan, can I ask a quick question before you
Yes.
start? So I see page types here on the page, on the slide. Often I also hear the word floor plan. Is Fiori Elements page types and floor plan the same? Is it two different things? Like, what is it?
Yeah, so it's basically the same. So UX defined a couple of floor plans, they call it, like list report or like object page. Mm-hmm. And page type, I think I would name it a synonym for the floor plans.
Okay.
Or we implemented these floor plans, and yeah, so you could also have written here floor plans.
Okay, but you guys,
templates,
you guys, yeah.
Template.
So you guys from the engineering side, you say like if it's Fiori Elements related, you call it page types. What the designers might call floor plans.
Yeah, so I would say it's 50-50.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to know, like, if I use floor plans, if that's something wrong, or that if
no, that's okay.
Okay.
All right, and what I just mentioned, so that basically the whole team knows what floor plans or page types we offer in Fiori Elements and what they basically can do. So this turned out to be very important aspect. So we saw this in internal customer project as well as external customer projects. We for example, had a Fiori Makers Bootcamp where we basically in 4 days created 3 applications. This turned out to be very successful because all were on the same page, and we said, okay, yeah, for this apps we can go for Fiori Elements, and then it was quite easy to create them. Yeah, so ideally, as mentioned, the whole team knows it. This of course also includes the business. So the requesting people who want an app, they should also be part of the team. And so the business and the product owners of the app can then better decide if they want to go for the faster and cheaper template way, or rather go for the flexible freestyle way. And so the other personas, so you probably have a designer then in the team. So the designer, when it's clear, okay, we will go for Fiori elements, does not need to create too many mock-ups, so she or he saves time. And also the designer does not need to know all the guidelines in detail, because all the parts which are done by Fiori elements will fit to the guideline, so he or she cannot do something wrong here, basically. So when you so then also we hear very often from customers that UI consistency is very important to them. So when you go for the templates, your UI will be quite consistent to other UIs SAP offers, especially in S/4HANA, because the majority of the newly created apps are created with Fiori elements. So your app you're gonna build will stick very much to them. Also, if the designer is maybe not yet so experienced, it might take some time for ramp up. If he or she needs to know everything, here the ramp up phase is quite faster. And then there's also another thing you should consider. So if you face a discrepancy between the mock-ups the designer creates and the capabilities Fiori element supports. So if you see, okay, there's a discrepancy, so we cannot do the app with with Fiori elements with these mock-ups. So then think twice. If you can do a similar good design, which can be done with Fiori elements, because also we saw quite often, so every designer creates the apps slightly differently, and it can then turn out, okay, so this as a certain design can never be done with Fiori elements, but when you go a step back and you think about what should the user be able to do in the app, and then you think about what you can do with Fiori elements, it turned often out that, okay, we changed the design to how Fiori elements would do it, and then still you can do the app with Fiori elements and maybe with some extensions, but again you can then save time there. And then the people who need to do all the code, so the developers, they also gain from this. So when they know what is possible, because most importantly, which developer do you have in your company? So most SAP partners probably have a lot of ABAP developers and maybe not so many JavaScript developers. So here comes the good thing. So you can build easy to medium apps without any JavaScript knowledge, because you can use all the standard functionality of Fiori elements. And for this, you will then, how we will show later, use these annotations. So you don't need to learn JavaScript. You just need to learn how to use Fiori elements. And then, even though if you are not a JavaScript developer, you can build a very nice Fiori application. Also, the quality will be better, because all the template code is covered by automatic tests, is constantly maintained and kept up to date to UI5 guidelines. Then from a functional perspective, you get more out of it, and also for non-functional requirements. So especially, for example, accessibility or performance. So also there, the team is constantly investing into these non-functional requirements, and for example, centrally improves the performance of an object page. And when you get this UI5 release, which comes with this improvement, all your apps will be faster without you do anything. So, and the developers, they can deliver more features in the same time. So, for
Stefan,
example,
we've got some comments in the chat about the slide share. Are you still sharing the same slide?
Yeah,
Page types and their capabilities?
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's just an introduction with some best practices, and then we're gonna start with the page types.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so last but not least, the developers, they can deliver more features in the same time, e.g. flexible column layout, which I will show you later on. It's a matter of minutes in Fiori Elements, whereas when you build in a freestyle apps, it takes you a couple of days. All right, and so these were a few best practices. So this turned out to be the key success factor, so that all the people in the which are involved in the app development, they know roughly what you can do with it, and so that also you now know better what you can do with Fiori Elements. We will start with a walkthrough, with a more detailed walkthrough through some Fiori Elements apps, and you will also learn then where when you're wondering, okay, is a certain feature supported, how you can find out.
And to Stefan's point about getting everyone on the same page, from the designers and developers to understand the capabilities, we put together a short guide. The name of it was something like
Usage guide.
Yeah, usage guide for Fiori Elements. So if you are interested in that, drop one of us a note, and we can make sure you get a copy of that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to put that in the chat, Peter? Put the link in the chat? Yeah.
Yes, I will figure out how to do that during the call.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
So actually, Peter, I will also show this SCM page, and there it's also linked here. You can see it?
Okay, yep, I'll find that, yep, and put it in the chat.
All right, so I'm gonna start with some reference apps with the Manage Products app. So here, this is the most commonly used floor plan in Fiori Elements. So this list report and object pages. And so what you can do is you can specify which filter fields you want to see on top. There are some which we add automatically. For example, we add the search field automatically if your service is marked as searchable. We add, if your service is draft enabled, we add an editing status filter. You maybe want to just check out which open drafts you have. And you can just specify, for example, want to see the supplier. So I can then use the supplier to sort here. And there are a few different value helps. So maybe I start with the category one. So there you also have here type ahead support, for example. I can then just select one of those. I can add a couple of more filter criteria and then just hit go. I can also change the filters. So I maybe want to see the currency field in addition. So I can just add it here. And you see the currency field came up here. And so there might be cases where you need a special filter because you maybe want to aggregate something, you want to make a custom filter, like you want to distinguish between cheap products and expensive products, and you want to specify what the criteria are. So what you can also do is you can also add an own filter. For example, here this average rating, this is a custom filter. So here you get then a view and a controller, and then you can just add your own filter here and then just do whatever is needed. Then in the table, there's basically 4 tables supported. So maybe you know SAP UI5 comes with a couple of tables. So this is the responsive table. There's also the grid table, which is more suitable for if you have a very big amount of data. There's the analytical table, which supports, for example, aggregates sums and so on. And there is the tree table, where you can have tree structures, where you can expand and collapse and so on. All of those are supported in Fiori elements. And in the table, there are a couple of visualization supported, like image, like here, this is a smart link from SAP UI5, where you basically get links to other apps of the same type. So with the same object type. So this app is dealing with products, so you can go to different apps dealing with products. And also some other things like here, such a quick view, like a status. So this is positive, so it's shown in green. Here, a rating, for example, a price, which by the way then also comes with the currency, the appropriate formatting. So taking into account that there are currencies with less or more decimals, and then also showing them properly. And in the table toolbar, there are some standard actions like create or delete. So I can here select one, and then you see delete is enabled, and I could delete a product. And you can also add your own actions. For example, copy here basically sends this product to the back end. In the back end, this product is copied, and the new instance is sent to the UI, and then you would just have a copy of it. All right. So are there any questions to the list report?
So the images, is that something that's part of the standard floor plan? That's an annotation that you add to put in a column with that type of control in there with a thumbnail.
Basically, it's a string field, and it consists of the URL where the image is located. And in the annotations, you basically just label this field that this is an image URL. And when the UI sees, okay, there's an image URL, it just instantiates an avatar control of UI5 and binds the string to the source property, and then it will show the image accordingly. Anything else?
Nope, all good. Some of the people were trying to download, I apologize, the first link was an internal one. The one in the chat now is an external one, so you should have full access to that now.
All right, then we continue with the object page. So in the object page, we have the header area here, and in the header area, it's intended to show the most important figures of this object. So in this case, of the product, for example, if it's in stock or what's the price of it. Now, and then we have the actions here on top, like edit and delete are standard actions. Again, the copy action. You can also get here own actions. Also on the table toolbar we saw before, you can also add their own actions where you get a view in the controller, where you get a controller, and then basically this controller is then called when the user hits the button, and then you can also do some custom logic if required. So now there might be then the question of your of the requester of your app. Okay, I want to show a micro chart here in the header. So okay, so how can you figure this out now? So you can open ui5.sap.com. When you are developing on an older version of UI5, make sure you change the version here on the top right, so that you are on the right version of UI5. And then in the documentation, there's a big chapter about Fiori elements. And so we are now on the object page. So what you see here is then this report an object page chapter. I went to object page template element. And then you see here the documentation, and you see here a screenshot, and there are also clickable areas. And as mentioned, so we are interested in a micro chart. So you see this here, so you can just click on it, and then you get to the description, what you can do in the header. And there's also a chapter about how to achieve these microcharts. So there are then also examples how to get them. So this is the one way. The other way is you can also open our feature map. And this is basically a big table with features we support. And you can then just search, for example, for microchart. And you then see also here the types. For example, we are interested in a line microchart. You see, okay, it's supported in the object page header. And you can then also get here the help documentation about it. So, and then you will also end up here. So it's ui5.sap.com, and then go to developing apps with SAP Fiori elements. So like this, you can get to know whether something is supported quite easily. And to start out, to continue our walkthrough through the object page. So we support here standard forms, tables, also with detail pages. So I can just go one level deeper. So you can have here a couple of tables with several hierarchy levels. So we can have purchase order item, schedule line item, and so on. So how deep you want it. And we also support here charts. So this is basically using the smart chart of SAP UI5, also annotation driven. Also it comes with capabilities like you can just change the chart type. And then there might be cases where the standard functionality is not enough. So for example, you want to have a special table, or I will show in the S4HANA apps later on. There are also examples. Then you can just extend the app. So you get here such an own section. So you will get either a UI5 fragment or a view and a controller. And then you can just basically put in whatever you need. So you just, in your view, you can, for example, add a process flow control or something else. Or here's also such a notes component where you can type in some notes. Yeah, so this is not supported in the standard, but you can just easily add it with extensions. And then the UI, so the user will not recognize that this was not standard for him or her. It just looks like the rest of the page. Actually, Eugen had a question to that.
Yeah, I was actually going just to ask you, Stefan. So you mentioned like the extensibilities of an application. So last time I think we also spoke about that Fiori elements, depending on how you build it, is future-proof. So if we, for example, have an evolution in the Fiori version, so from 2 to 3 as we have it at the moment. So what can I do from an extensibility perspective to be still future-ready? Or future-proof, and at what point do I actually break it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what you should do is you should stick to the guidelines we have for such extension development. So for example, what you should, by the way, also take care in freestyle applications, that you only use public available functionality. So for example, don't use in private methods of SAP UI5 or of Fiori elements, because they might change. So most importantly, stick to the development guidelines. So they are also in the documentation. So there's a chapter about extending the apps. When you stick to this, you should, in nearly all the cases, be safe, unless UI5 would, for example, create a fancy new control. So you maybe use an image control of SAP UI5. UI5 comes with a way better image control. So the old one will still be supported as long as there's no major version change. So to SAP UI5 2.0, only then they would be allowed to change in an incompatible way. but until you are on the same minor version, on the same major version, 1 dot something, your extension will still work. So this is it's a promise of UI5 that, and also of your elements. So you created an extension. You stick to all the guidelines, and then your extension will work in every newer release, apart from a major version change.
Cool, thank you.
All right. So this is basically the list report object page. So what I can suggest is, so when you want to build it, just click through all the pages in the documentation. You don't need to read all the stuff, but it's already very valuable when you just click through it and have a look at the screenshots. There you already get a lot out of it. For example, you go over this page, you see there are some few switches available, like this one here, then like tabs here, so that you have dedicated tabs for different table views. Yeah, here even with the figures. So this is very very good when you do this, when you start with it, so that you get a glimpse of what is supported. Okay, so then let's go ahead with the overview page. So this, as briefly mentioned last time, so this is basically intended to be a starting point of a user's daily work. So he has here an overview. He does not need to check several analytical applications or several reports to get to know where he needs to take action, but just here has a view on it and gets to know, okay, where should I act? Also, it's possible to go from when I click here on the header or when I click on a line item here to a respective app. And also for this, it's also driven by annotations. You don't need to code something for it. And it's, so customers highly appreciate it. It's quite easy to do, as you don't need to code all these dashboard and so on. It's read only, so compared to edit apps like a list report object page, which costs a lot of time. So this is definitely something where you can look into it if you want to attract the users with a nice dashboard with an overview about the relevant data for them. And also for this page type or floor plan, we have a documentation page with an overview about the card types. And so roughly we support here some analytical cards, like you saw, like here, this one is this bubble chart. You see here there can be KPI on top, there can be target deviation figures. So a couple of chart types are supported there. We can have here such list cards in different variations, like also with such here progress indicators. Without them, also table cards like this one here or this one here. Also for such a table card here, you can have such a KPI on the top. Here we have a card about contacts, and so you basically see here the list of cards, and then you can also either by clicking on such a card here or by browsing through the structure here drill deeper and get some examples how to achieve it. So you see then also here the examples how to get it, so some variants of it, and can then build such an overview page. Are there any questions to the overview page?
If you have that list, the list card, and you click on that, that would typically take you to a list report where you would have more items, and then you could drill down in more detail. Is that
exactly.
right? Okay.
Exactly. So here you see, so this is something I should watch, because these are products which I should reorder. So I see that it's showing here 3 of 28. So there's some more. So I can just click here on the header. It will lead me to the list report, and not only lead me to the right list report, but also take over the filter criteria we had on the card, so that you basically see the same data, and you see, oh, 28. So it took the same filter criteria. So basically, this is then the full list of the preview on the overview page. And not forget to mention, so the overview page is also only intended to be an overview and not to do all the work, but just that you get an overview of the tasks or of the data you should monitor, and then you can just go to other apps from there seamlessly, like you just saw it, and then can take action there.
Got it.
Okay, we also have the work list, which I will not show today, because it's basically the list report without a filter bar, so it's not too spectacular.
Stefan, we've got a question in the chat on the overview page.
Mm-hmm.
How many cards do you recommend for the overview page?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. So it depends. So
Isn't that always the answer for anything?
It depends on there's of course one thing, the performance. So ideally it's tailored for a user's role. So that you, for example, you're a strategic purchaser, so you only see what is relevant to you. So from that perspective, it's not too overloaded. So compared to if you would do an overview page for a whole area, then it will already be more relevant to the user, and also from a performance perspective. So ideally, you have a dedicated OData service, which offers the entities which you want to take to show the cards here. So then you will have less overhead by loading metadata documents and annotations and so on. And yeah.
So just a question, Stefan. So what are the implications here on performance after you've entered into a card and then you return back to the overview page? Does everything get reloaded? Is there efficiencies there from a caching perspective? I mean, I think all of us are concerned about keeping things snappy and working, right? Are there any good best practices or recommendations?
Mm-hmm. So it gets, when I get back, it gets loaded again, because usually you will so only the data will be loaded again. So basically the so all the artifacts, JavaScript artifacts and so on, we still have in the cache, but the data gets loaded again, because maybe you I mean, the idea is you take action and you come back and then you see what you should do now. So it might you reordered all the products, so this list will be empty when you come back. It might also be that the chart here changes because your spend increased because you ordered more. But so only the data is here then loaded again, but all the JavaScript files and so on are cached.
Okay, thanks.
I have another performance-related question. I know that when you build an app in Fiori Elements, it's responsive. You can run it on a desktop, a phone, a tablet. What would you, if you were building an app like an overview page where you expected people to use it primarily on a phone or mobile device, what would you do differently for that app? And can you have the app only load maybe 4 tiles if you're on a mobile device versus 20 if you're on a desktop, because you know that the bandwidth is going to be different?
So this is, I would need to check this, but I think this is not supported, that you can distinguish between the mobile and the desktop, unless there's the thing you can So usually you have apps behind the cards. So like I clicked here on this reorder soon, and then the app opened. So there's an app basically then behind it. And I can say that a particular app is a prerequisite to show the card and to load the card. Because if I don't have the list report for products, it might not make sense to show the card here. So, and if there are apps, so for example, imagine all the analytical apps on all the analytical cards here, they require a desktop to show the apps behind it. So then they would not be shown on a mobile. So there are some ways to do it, and probably I would validate then on the mobile if the performance is good. But so actually the main use case seems to be that this is used on a desktop device, not so much on mobile. At least we haven't heard so many customer requests like this you mentioned. But I mean, if this increases the mobile usage of overview pages, of course, also we could think about just loading the cards which are in the viewport of the browser screen, which we, for example, also do on the object page, and then do a lazy loading when the user starts scrolling.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could have a mobile tile up here, and then you would click on that to get the slimmed down mobile overview page, but then you'd have to build two different overview page apps.
Mm. All right, then let's continue with the analytical list page. So starting in the header. So by the way, we also have on the list report and on the overview page a variant management, where you can basically you can change here the variant. So here I have a variant 3 years, so it basically shows the past 3 years. I can basically do some filters. I can do some sortings, some groupings, whatever, adjust the view, and then save this as a variant. And I can also set this as a default variant. So I can, for example, tell, okay, every time the app loads, I want to see the 3 years variant. Also a feature which comes out of the box in the list pages and the overview page. Next to it, there is a KPI. So we can add here such KPI cards, which can be relevant in the context of the analysis which I want to do with this floor plan here. So in this case, the sales revenue, for example, and I can also see here a chart. Then a very nice feature of the analytical list page is this visual filter bar. So you see there are a couple of chart types supported, and they are not only showing actual data. So for example, what is the revenue by customer, but you can also use them to filter the data. So I can, for example, here also use the revenue by product filter. So and you saw not only the content changed to the according filter criteria, but also the other charts here in the header changed. I can also switch to the normal filter mode, which we have in the list report, for example. And you see here, for example, also now I filtered for this large cabinet product, and it's also reflected here. Then we have the two things in the content, the chart and the table. I can also change the appearance. So maybe I'm mainly interested in the chart, so I can just change this. I can also, like on the object page you saw, so it's basically the same chart. I can also change the chart type here easily to whatever is meaningful in this case. And what I can also do is when I now want to find out, okay, what was responsible for this China chain value in 2017, I can hit the bar So the table on the bottom will now show me the values which are responsible for this bar.
Stefan, on the change in the chart type that you showed in the upper right corner, is that something that's done during the development time, or this is if an end user is using this app, they can switch things around as they see to make it more consumable and more functional for them?
So the app developer tells what should be the default. So in this time it said the column chart should be the default, and the end user could then change it when he or she thinks there's something else more appropriate.
So all end user driven. The framework is there. All of the coding for any chart type is in place already. It's just a matter of how do you want to visualize it as an individual. Great.
Yep. All right. So then I have a couple of examples from an S4 HANA test system. So it's from the role of a procurement officer. And so here you see an overview page where they created a couple of cards. So e.g. here, monitor purchase contracts, so where the purchaser needs to take action. So this it's already 96% of the contract was used, so he should do something here. Also then here some other things like purchase order items, request for quotations, and so on. And also here you can then just here click on the column on the header, and you come here, for example, to an analytical list page where then the purchaser can investigate this. Also for list report object page, so here we have an app for managing purchase request for quotations. Also there I have an object page. So what always looks nice when you have here such a picture, then there are the most important information in the header. So this is a bit a longer object page with some nicely grouped forms. There are a couple of tables. What I mentioned earlier, that you can have your own stuff, which is not supported in here without the user recognizing, oh, this is not Fiori element standard, like here the process flow. So they just created here an extension and could then implement this process flow into the object page. Yeah.
So coming back to the question, I think maybe Eugen had at the beginning about forward compatibility. If there was something changed at a product standard level, the standard stuff in the app would shift automatically and inherit that. But this little box of the process flow might require some manual updates. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. So, I mean, as mentioned, as long as you stick to the guidelines of SAP UI5 and also to Fiori elements, e.g. don't add some custom CSS. When you don't add custom CSS, but just use the control as it is, it will also adapt to the theming, to changes from SAP UI5, to changes from Fiori elements. And as long as you take, for example, we have also an extension API, which the app developers should use, as long as they stick to this. This is, it should work with every additional UI5 release. And yeah, so it could happen. We now say, okay, we have now a better process flow control, which is then a different control. So this will still work forever in SAP UI5 1.x. But it might be then interesting for the app team to change to the new process flow control to get more features, for example.
Okay.
And I think, Stefan, you touched on an important point here, right? That this is, when you talk about future proof, this is all changes with a tool like Theme Designer, so customer customs themes and things like that would flow all the way through all Fiori element page types, correct?
Exactly. So we just also use all the standard SAP UI5 controls. SAP UI5 controls are ready for this theming. And as soon as you now change with the theme designer, for example, the background here to, I don't know, dark green, for example, and you would change this greenish color to a blue color, whatever. Everywhere where the app developer did not add some custom CSS, it will automatically apply.
And there was one more question here from Rahul in the chat. Is there any way through annotation in the analytical reports where charts can show live data, like anything changed in the background should reflect without refreshing the page?
No, this is also not this is not really about annotations. So the annotations, they basically tell, okay, what should be on the UI, but they would not tell, because it's not some semantic information to the data, that it should be updated regularly. So in the overview page, we have this, that you can specify an interval in which the cards should reload their data. In the analytical list page, we did not get this request yet.
So you're saying not request, meaning that's not on the it's not on the roadmap to provide this capability.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean it's also a thing where you want to where you don't want to overload your backend too much when it would pull data don't know, every second. So at the moment you would just here it's an analytic list page, you would just, when you want to see new data, you would just hit the go button, so it would reload the data. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So Stefan, we're coming towards the end of the call. If you had 2 more minutes, is there anything important that you want to share within 2 minutes?
Yeah, actually we have so I showed the documentation, and another thing is where you, by the way, also find Peter's usage guide he mentioned earlier. When you go to the SCN and look there for Fiori elements, you can also just Google for SCN and Fiori elements. That's what I also do all the time. So just SCN Fiori elements. So that's the quickest way to get there. This is a collection of a lot of tutorials and of blogs, of like the usage guide and so on. So there you will find a lot of information which will be interesting for you when you want to start off with a project or with a new floor plan which you haven't used yet.
I put that link in the chat for anyone who wants it.
Okay, great. So guys, if I had another question in terms of like, I want to have more deep dive information, I want to learn more about Fiori elements on a consistent basis, what's the best way to do that?
Well, we've got a number of resources. Always check SCN, as you said, the SAP communities, for new blogs on the topic. There's a video series called Getting Started with Fiori Elements. If you go to YouTube and search for that, you'll find that, or just say Getting Started with Fiori Elements, and you'll certainly find it on Google. And that's a series of 11 videos by the development team that talks about each of the floor plans and how to get started. This documentation site that Stefan showed is another great way. And every month on the third Thursday, there's a Fiori practitioner forum where experts will show what they've done. Customers will show their applications, as Stefan did with some apps from the S4 team. You'll see some creative uses of Fiori elements and also tutorials from the product team.
Okay, great. Good. Then in terms of, can you guys go back to the slide deck? I think there was one more thing you wanted to share on the next step. So like giving a quick outlook. Do you want to spend like maybe a minute or two on version 4 of OData?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what we are currently working on, and which it's planned for autumn to be released, is floor plans for OData version 4. So the current ones are for OData version 2. And so there we gain from some benefits of OData version 4. So listed here. And so we start with a list report and object page, whereas we also started, for example, already with a chart in the list report, which then eventually will end up in what we now have as analytic list page as well. And what is especially for the app developers very interesting, so that they will be more flexible in a way how you can use it. So we for example, make use of the standard SAP UI5 routing, so you can squeeze in a custom page if required. So it's much more flexible, and it's quite good performing. So we also have, for example, the sales order, the create sales order app for Fiori being developed on this stack in S/4HANA currently. And so we showed this at TechEd last year, a preview of it. And it was so fast that a couple of people were asking if this is a mock-up or if this is a live app. So stay tuned for this. So this will be very interesting.
Great. Okay, so then Peter, I think you also wanted to share some of the. Stefan, can you keep maybe just like on the next slide?
So it's Peter now showing?
No, like just keep it presenting, Stefan.
Okay.
So Peter, you mentioned a few of the Fiori Elements resources. I think you had that covered already, right? Like a minute ago.
Yeah, let me pull that up then.
Yeah. Can you see it?
Not yet.
I should hit the share button, yeah.
Yeah, okay, back. Great.
Okay, so yeah, we've got a number of different resources. If you want one-stop shopping, just go to www.sapfiorielements.com. Can you jump to the next one, please? Next slide, Stefan. Yeah. So another way, if you want to stay current, we have a newsletter on SAP Fiori Elements as well. It's more of a development newsletter. We've got content on Fiori Elements. We've got things on SAP UI5. We've got articles on the Business Application Studio. So if you're interested, just type that in there, tinyurl.com/SAP-Fiori-newsletter. And the next issue is slated to come out sometime in May. And let's jump to the next one because Eugen's going to talk about what's coming in the next session.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks guys for the great session that you gave today.
Yeah, thanks.
And we said for next week's Fiori-side chat, the topic should be Fiori Launchpad. So everyone who is interested from you in the Fiori Launchpad, please join. And we will actually adjust the format a little bit. So we will actually have a panel discussion. We will have a panel of experts in that session. So we will make it highly interactive in that regards. And time is the same time. It's Tuesday again. It's 8 o'clock Pacific time, 11 Eastern, and 5 p.m. in Central Europe. So Paris, German time zones, 5 p.m. And if you have any interest in viewing the previous sessions, if you go on the tiny URL link on SAP Fiori-side-chat, you actually go and you will find the links to the YouTube recordings that we have there. So to wrap up the call, thanks a lot everybody for joining, and thanks again Peter and Stefan for presenting, yeah. And thank you very much Keith for co-hosting, and see you next week again.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.